Safe. Safe. Hey guys, this is New Dog, and this video is going to be about the bump stock in lieu of the whole Las Vegas shooting thing. Basically what happened was I had gotten a question from a friend of mine for going on about 20 years now, and she had asked me, you know, what is your opinion on the bump stock, and what is a bump stock and what does it do? So the first question, what is my opinion on the bump stock? I'll get into that a little bit later because it's a little bit more in depth. Yeah, we'll just get into it later. What is a bump stock and what does it do? So first, to understand what a bump stock is and what it does, we have to understand how a semi-automatic rifle, like what the shooter or shooters used, we need to know how it operates. So here we have a cutaway view of an AR-15, an M4, an M6. Well, it's not an M16, but it's either an AR-15 styled weapon or it's an M4. I'm just going to say it's an M4 because it has the carrying handle, but you know, that's easily put on any AR-15 platform. Regardless, what happens with these semi-automatic rifles is they do have a cycle of events that need to go through in order to operate the firearm. So when you first load up your magazine, which is this bit here, you'll load it into the magazine well, which it doesn't show here, but the magazine well is right here. You load it up in here. The bolt, which is this bit here, is back here. So basically your round, which is this, will sit just on the top of the magazine. And there's a button on the other side of the rifle that will drive the bolt forward, like that. And what happens when the bolt comes forward is it grabs a round from the magazine and puts it into the breech, which is this bit right here. When you pull the trigger, what happens is there's a little like pin. It looks almost like a needle, just a bit thicker. What happens is that pin hits the primer in the round. The primer ignites the powder, which is right in here in the casing of the round, and that powder basically just explodes. And when it explodes, what it does is it creates gases. Those gases expand because they have no other place to go. They look for release. What happens is this bit here, the actual projectile of the bullet, since it's just lightly crimped, that's going to give away first. So the projectile will shoot out the barrel of the rifle. The gases are looking for a place to escape. That's the whole purpose of this. So as the gases are pushing this projectile out of the barrel, the gases are escaping through here, and they're escaping through this gas tube, and they also escape through the ejection port, which is right about in here. You can't see it in this diagram, but it's right about in here. And at the same time, because you have something going forward, we know through physics that every action has an opposite and equal reaction. So that means something has to go backwards. That something is the bolt. The bolt flies backwards this way up against this spring here. What happens is that spring compresses, and like springs tend to do, they decompress. So the spring comes back forward. When the spring comes back forward, it drives this bolt forward. And the bolt picks up another round, chambers it into the breech. That is the layman's version of how a rifle works. I skipped a lot of technical stuff in there. a lot of different parts I didn't mention. This is just a very cut and dry, big bird breakdown of how a rifle works. And what happens is, in a semi-automatic rifle, it'll stay right here in this position until you pull the trigger again. In an automatic rifle, you can keep that trigger depressed and it'll just go back and forth and shoot automatically. So we have a basic understanding now of how this particular rifle works. So what is a bump stock and how does it function? So a bump stock is a modification, and we're worried about this portion back here now. A bump stock is a modification where the person will remove this section here and they'll put in another section that looks just like this, except the internals are a little bit different. And it's a legal modification, and it was invented, believe it or not, for handicapped people to enjoy the sport of shooting. And how it operates, so what it is, I should clarify that. What it is it's a legal modification that allows the handicapped to enjoy the sport of shooting. That's its intended use anyways, so that's its intended purpose. How does it work? It's a little bit harder to explain. I'll do my best here. I'm going to try to keep it simple. Basically what it does is it makes this distance between the spring and the bolt cut in half. So what happens is when you fire any kind of firearm, you get what's called recoil, that whole opposite and equal reaction thing. So what that is the firearm comes backwards into your shoulder. What the bump stock does is the bump stock acts as this spring. The whole stock acts as this spring. So the stock itself moves. It's dynamic, whereas in a regular AR platform, the stock is just static. It doesn't move. The spring does all the work. The bump stock, as the name suggests, it bumps into your shoulder with the recoil, and it completes the action of this spring here. So to put it in another way, the stock itself pushes the bolt forward instead of the spring pushing this bolt forward. What this does, and why people are going all crazy about it, is it actually increases the cyclic rate of the weapon. So like the average person, I'm not talking about trained professionals, I'm not talking about people in the military or people who have spent their whole lives devoted to guns. The average person will be able to pull this trigger and they can rapid fire. But not as quickly as having a bump stock. Keep in mind this is the average person we're talking about. And using the recoil to complete the cycle is quicker than pulling the trigger in most cases. So that's what it does, that's how it functions. I don't know how to make it any more clear than that, other than saying that the stock itself functions as the spring to drive the bolt forward through recoil. Why is it dangerous, or why are people so up in arms about it? That's probably the bigger question. And it's because it does increase how rapidly the average person can fire this particular platform. Is that necessarily a problem? Well, that's kind of a subjective point of view, depending on where your stance is, what your beliefs are, and whatnot. To me, through my own test, being an avid shooter, being somebody who loves guns, being somebody who is a marksman, who enjoys competition, I can tell you that you don't need to worry about people rapid firing as much as you need to worry about the guy who is taking his time and aiming his shots. For example, if you go to a gun range, if you go to Dragon Man's, for example, you will see people who rapid fire. They do it all the time there. It's annoying. and they rarely ever hit their target. So think about the Las Vegas shootings, all right? The people or person, we still don't have 100% confirmation yet, who were using these bump stocks, they shot thousands of rounds, or he shot thousands of rounds. He managed to kill 58, and he wounded, I think, the tally is what, 200 and something? And that's tragic. It is, let's not downplay it, that's tragic. My thing is, though, is there was a huge crowd, and he was basically what we call in the military spraying and praying. He wasn't aiming his shots. He was just shooting out the window and hoping that he hit somebody. Now, a marksman who can shoot quickly will aim down his rear sight, which would be here, and his front sight, which would be here. They would aim their shots. And I guarantee that if the shooter or shooters had aimed their shots, we would be looking at a fatality rate far higher than 58 people in Las Vegas. Just looking at the videos, I looked at where he was positioned, up on the 30 whatever floor, and I just looked at that and went, you know, anybody that I served with, or even myself for that matter, would have killed a lot more people. Simply because we would have aimed our shots. There would have been no wasted shots. There might have been some people who didn't get killed. There would have been a lot of casualties, both injured, but there would be a higher rate of deaths had the person aimed their shot instead of relying on the bump stock to shoot rapidly. So, going on to my personal opinion, as you've probably already figured out, I don't see the purpose of a bump stock for somebody who's not handicapped. I don't. It does nothing for the shooter. It's not helping your accuracy, it's not helping your marksmanship, you're not hitting the targets you intended to hit. And, you know, maybe that was his grand design, or their grand design, I don't know, maybe they just wanted to cause chaos, which in that case he used the appropriate equipment. He caused chaos. If he was trying to cause as many deaths and as many wounds as he could, he screwed up. They screwed up by relying on this bump stock. Do I think they should be banned? Because that's the big debate right now. I'm on the line. On one hand, I think that maybe banning them isn't such a bad idea. Maybe they should be banned because we got people who are using it for a purpose other than what it was intended for. Yet, on the other hand, if we ban them, then these handicapped people who wouldn't be able to enjoy the sport of shooting without the bump stocks would have their rights infringed. They would no longer be able to use the weapon of their choice out on the range and enjoy the sport of shooting. So it's hard for me to give a definite yes or no on that opinion. And that's really about it. I don't want to go further into the Las Vegas shootings simply because we don't have enough information yet. I'm not one of those people who will hear something in the news and immediately join one of the bandwagon people who are suddenly experts on the situation. They don't have the information. But as of right now, I will conclude, like I said before, that had he not used a bump stock and used this setup, he would have killed a whole lot more people than if he had used, he would have killed more people than he did if he hadn't used the bump stock. Using the bump stock, a lot of rounds missed. So I'm going to leave it at that. I hope that helps. if you or anybody else has any questions about any of this, please by all means let me know. If you need me to clarify anything that I've gone over, let me know, I will. And that's my phone. Shut up. Ask me questions if you need me to clarify anything. Ask me questions that come up into your head while you're watching this video, and if I haven't already answered them, I will. And we're going to leave it at that. So be safe, be cool, have fun. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button, and yeah, we'll call it there. See you later, guys. Bye.